Hi guys, how are you? So first and foremost, let me just say I apologize once again for the weird noises you hear in the background. For the past month, Moshe's been being a big sister and she's been having an easy time but also a little bit of a hard time, and she's a little attached to me, even more so than she was prior. So Moshe's down below my feet and she's snoring. So I'm sorry for that if you keep hearing weird noises, but if you guys followed my entire pregnancy, you pretty much are used to it by now. Anyway, so welcome to my birth story video. I have another video that's all footage of everything happening. So this is kind of just going to be me talking about all the specifics. You kind of get the gist when you watch my video, but I wanted to actually tell you all of the details and everything that was going on and conversations that took place, all that jazz. So September 19th, I ended up going into the doctor's office. I forgot exactly why. Oh, I think there was like, I was having sharp pains, that's what it was. So I was having these like really weird sharp pains in my belly. Mush. So on September 19th, I was having really sharp pains in my belly and I couldn't figure out why. I felt like I was kind of having contractions, but I was definitely having like weirdly sharp pains. I didn't like it and I decided I was going to call the doctor's office and I was going to talk to a midwife about it. I ended up doing so. And she asked me if I would feel comfortable coming in. She said I didn't have to. She thought that it was just like round ligament pain, just me getting so big and being at the end of my pregnancy. But she said that like that is what she's here for, and if I felt like coming in, she would just schedule me right in and I could go and I could see her. So we ended up having that doctor's appointment early, and we went to my midwife and we ended up meeting with her, and she once again said everything seemed fine. She actually checked me for the first time, which, as you had known if you'd watched my videos, I had never gotten checked before. My doctor's office didn't really feel it's necessary to like introduce bacteria or to really check, because it doesn't really need much, and boy were they correct. Wait until I tell you this. So she checked me and she said that she would do like a membrane sweep if I wanted to, because being that I was 39 weeks, kind of trying to like get things started. And yeah, I said I didn't mind, like if it was possible, like go right ahead. We were ready to have the baby, so we didn't mind. When she checked me, she said that I was 0 centimeters dilated, I had 0 effacement, and my cervix was really high and closed, and like just nothing, like no sign of like impending labor in any way, shape, or form. So I pretty much was not going into labor anytime soon, is what we took out of that doctor's visit. She was not able to do anything, no membrane sweep, nothing, because I was so high and closed. And we left, and that was that. And we kind of just, on the car ride home, we're like, well, an October birthday is pretty, you know, pretty cool, like no big deal. And this is September 19th, mind you. So we were like, yeah. So I actually ended up telling Dan's mom, and I told my family, I told my mom and my dad and my friend, like my best friend, and I like told them all, like, you know, baby's not coming anytime soon, like I finally got checked, like all's good, see you in October, baby, no big deal. Well, like you can't make this up. That was around like my appointment I think was at like 2:15 or 2:45 my appointment was at. The next morning at 6:35 a.m. Dan's getting into bed after doing his night shift. I'm awake and I get out of bed to go to the bathroom quickly, and what do you know? My water breaks. I was not expecting my water to ever break because only like 15% of women's water breaks naturally. I didn't think that I would be one of those people whose water just broke, especially at exactly 39 weeks. So September 20th was a Tuesday. You would have had a video from me for my 39-week update, but my water broke. So how it felt, I got up and I felt a warmth, no popping or any weird sensation they say that you feel. I felt some warmth and I was like, that's strange. But it was like internal warmth. It was really weird, like really weird. You guys are probably all like, oh, strange. But yeah, that's how it felt. And then just liquid came out of me. So it was probably like a regular size, like it was probably like this much came out. Like not like a crazy amount, like bucket like people think, and then not like a tiny little amount. So it was probably like a water bottle. I thought that I peed my pants and then I was like, no, I definitely didn't. This is definitely my water breaking. I looked at Dan, my husband, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think my water just broke. I was like, and I just like ran to the bathroom. Well, I waddled to the bathroom is what happened. And yeah, no, definitely. When I went to the bathroom, I had my bloody show and I had also lost my mucus plug. So like things were happening really quickly. And it was like just one of those, you know, I spent this whole time thinking about, you know, 39 weeks thinking about like what this moment would be like, and here I am experiencing it. Like my water broke. This is happening. Like there's no like questioning your water breaking. Like your water broke. Like I knew that the baby was coming and it was so exciting. So Dan did not go back to sleep, and I didn't go back to sleep. He ended up going and bringing his work truck back because he still had his work truck. It was right down the road. And then I started just to kind of, I knew there were certain things I wanted to get done before my contractions started hurting. So I cleaned the house a little bit and I started to kind of like put my hospital bag like in the kitchen and like kind of just starting to slowly pack all the things I knew that I would have to pack. I showered and I think I dried my hair and I put makeup on. I definitely did that. I put some makeup on. And I waited for Dan to come back. He came back with coffee and bagels. So then I sat and I ate my bagel. And then I told Dan that he should go to sleep because he had worked that entire night. So he hadn't gone to sleep since the afternoon prior. And I knew that it was going to be a really long time for him. So he ended up actually going back to sleep. I told him nothing was going to happen. And I wasn't gonna, it was only 6:35 that my water broke and I wasn't rushing to the hospital. So, and I wasn't having contractions really at that point. So I had him go to sleep and I waited until 9:30 when my doctor opened. Dan was sleeping during this time. I ended up calling the doctor's office and letting them know that my water had broken. But that I didn't want to go into the hospital just yet, and I really wanted to labor at home as much as I could. I had spoken to all of my midwives and my doctor about doing so, and they said that as long as I was having a healthy pregnancy, everything would be fine and I would have no problem doing that. So that is what I ended up doing. I spoke to the midwife who was on call at the hospital. She called me back and she said, well, why do you think that your water broke? And I was like, love, I can assure you that my water broke. Like, I had my bloody show, my mucus plug is gone, like, I am still literally leaking fluid. And guys, mind you, because I'm probably going to forget to mention this, I did not stop leaking fluid until, like, he was out. Like, the whole day, probably like 1 in the morning well into labor, I was still leaking fluid that entire time. My water had still not like fully removed itself. I think that the reason why I had such a big belly was because I had produced so much fluid, like literally so much. Maybe that's why people say buckets come out. I think his head just kind of like plugged up and like it was just every once in a while when I would move, like he would let some out. I don't know, this is my, I guess, the universal sign for baby pluggage. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, so I was like, this lady thinks that I don't know what my water breaking is like. Like, clearly I'm not peeing myself. I have no control over this whatsoever, and I have on flipping Depends. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess, too, love me some Depends. Forget the pads they give you in the hospital. Forget those stupid mesh underwear. Do yourself a favor, get like the Fit Flex women's Depends. They're very thin. Holy moly, amazing. I was leaking fluid the entire day. What was I supposed to be doing? How long was I gonna sit on the toilet for and leak fluid before I was able to get up and like be excited that I was going into labor? Ladies, I'm telling you, please just suck it up and just get them. You will thank me. Best investment I ever made, I'm telling you. Oh my gosh, I'm all for them. Like, go Depends, go women diapers, like all the way for pregnancy. So yeah, so I had those on like the whole day. So my midwife was like, how do you, like, why do you think that you haven't, why do you think your water broke? And I was like, listen, woman, like, my water broke. So she asked me a bunch of questions, and then she asked me like how his movement was, and I was like, well, he's not really moving like as much as he normally does. But I think he's just kind of like doesn't have a sack of water around him anymore, so he's probably a little like weirded out. And she was like, I don't know, like, I kind of wanted you to say that like he was moving normal. She was like, and because you feel like he's moving slightly different, it would make me happy if you could just come into the hospital and we can get him on the monitor. Once again, I told her that like I really just wanted to labor at home, and she said that she would be happy to let me go home. She won't admit me when I get here or anything. Put him on the monitor for 15 minutes, track everything, see how I'm feeling, see me in person, make sure my water actually did break, and then I could go home. So I was like, done deal. So she said there's no rush whatsoever. I let Dan sleep. I think it was around like 11:30. At that point, we ended up going to the hospital. 7 minutes away from my house, no big deal. We actually ended up going to Starbucks beforehand. We got Starbucks. Like, I really was just like cool as a cucumber during this whole experience. So was Dan. We were just like chilling and hanging out. So we go to the hospital, and I go in there, and like I feel like all the nurses think that I peed myself, because I'm sure so many women like do that. They pee themselves and they think their water broke, and like because like I didn't seem like I was like excited for labor, or I didn't seem like I really wanted to be there, they probably thought that my water hadn't actually broken, but it did, like, absolutely. So the nurse brings me into the room, and she starts asking me questions about like my water breaking, and she was like, do you have like a pad on? And I'm like, yo. And I was like, I have a diaper on because there is fluid frequently coming out of me. And she was like, oh. And right as I had said that, another nurse had come in, and that nurse said to her, she was like, no, her water broke, she's leaking fluid, she has a diaper on. I'm like, thank you. So yeah, so they hooked him up to the monitor, and he was great. I was great. I was having contractions, apparently, like significant contractions, but I wasn't feeling them. I don't know. And then my midwife came in, and she checked me, and she said that I was 1 centimeter dilated, 50% effaced, and 1 centimeter dilated, 50% effaced, yeah, and doing good. And she was like, yeah, your water broke. And I was like, cool. So all within like what, 15 hours, I went from being absolutely nothing, not having a baby ever, to on my way to having a baby. So did good. She wanted me to do everything that I could to stimulate my labor at home. So I knew exactly what that meant, what I had to do, and I did that. So I went, she let me go home. We ended up going home. That's a lie. We ended up going to Walmart. I walked around, hung out, got some sandwiches. We did that. And then we came home, and then I ate my sandwich and chilled, and we hung out and kind of just like was excited. And then after eating the sandwich, we went out and I went for a walk. We walked on the bike path. I was trying to get labor going. I was doing squats. I was doing everything. Nipple stimulation, like just trying to get these contractions going. After the walk, we came home again. Dan went back to sleep because he still hadn't gotten a full night's sleep the night prior, and he was damn sure not getting a full night's sleep that night. So he went back to sleep again. And then I sat on my ball, listened to my laboring mix, like of music that I had made, and I nipple stimulation, and was on that ball just trying to roll my hips out, get everything going. Contractions started getting pretty, not intense, but like they started to kind of alarm me. Like I was like, whoa, and it got to the point where I was excited that I went from excited contractions were getting stronger to kind of being like, wow, these are getting really strong, like ow. And when that started to happen, she told me, the midwife said I had to come back in by 8 p.m. regardless. But my contractions around like 5:30, 6 p.m. were starting to get kind of intense, and I was like, you know what, I feel like now's a good time. 12 hours have gone by. Now's a good time for me to go into the hospital and just kind of be in like a safe setting. So I woke Dan up and I let him know that like I'd like to just go to the hospital, which was perfectly fine, and that's exactly the way that they, my midwife wanted it to happen. She wanted me to make the decision to come back and like when I was feeling it. So we ended up going back to the hospital, this time officially, and when I walked in, one of the nurses was like, oh, like, I thought I wouldn't see you till tomorrow morning, like, I guess your contractions got stronger. And like, I still to this day think about that time, and I should have been like, woman, my water broke. Like, I can't come back tomorrow morning because that would be 24 hours since my what's it called? Like, my water broke. Like, crazy lady. Anyway, I think she just didn't realize. I bet you she realized after the fact when people actually like told her like, no, her water broke. Like, she's supposed to have been in the hospital since 6:30 this morning. She's just a weirdo who wants to be home. But yeah, so we get back to the hospital, and so she checks me again, and I'm 2 centimeters dilated, and so I'm 2 centimeters dilated, and I think she didn't tell me what my effacement was or anything, but yeah, 2 centimeters dilated. And then she did a little finagling and she made me 3 centimeters dilated, and she was very impressed by how like pliable or like flexible my cervix was. Why? Because I was using the evening primrose oil, I was eating it, and I was also inserting it, and I was also drinking the red raspberry leaf tea, which is exactly meant for that. So ladies, those 2 things work. They worked for me, and it might not induce labor, but when you go into labor, you're going to be very happy that just a little bit of manipulation up there, and you're able to go an entire centimeter or 2 just by, by drinking those things and inserting those things. And I had only done it for like 2 weeks before I went into labor. So that's exciting. So yeah, so just for a note, those worked for me really well. So I was having strong contractions. I wanted to get up out of that bed. I did not want to be in it, and they let me to after he was on the monitor, and I walked around in circles and walked around in circles in my room, and I squatted on the floor, and I was doing this back and forth and making it through the contractions, and then I would get up and I would walk around, and I'd go back when the contractions happened. And that was fine for a really long time, and then Dan was, putting pressure on my back while that was happening, and everything was okay. Like, they were really, really painful, but like not to the point where I was just like just too much, where it was just too much. And then I don't know what the hell. Oh, and by the way, this whole time I'm stimulating my nipples, and you're probably thinking to yourself like, weird, why are you doing that? It's like a midwife thing. Like, by stimulating your nipples, you're creating oxytocin, which is commonly known as Pitocin. But your body creates oxytocin and it gets your contractions going. So it's like a natural way of, you know, getting your labor going. And that was my job, because they were saying that because my water had broken early in the morning, they wanted to get, and I was at such a low centimeters, that they were going to start giving me Pitocin to get my labor going. And I didn't want to do that, especially that early into the labor, because I know that Pitocin commonly leads to the baby's heart fluctuating, and then that leads to an emergency C-section, and I was not about to be doing that nonsense. So I didn't want to do that, so I worked really, really hard to get my labor going, which I was able to do. So after doing that for like I think like an hour or two, they were getting so bad, I couldn't do it. We took one lap around the ward, and I was like, I don't want to walk anymore. They were too much. The nurse ended up coming in and seeing how I was doing, and she was like, okay, if this isn't working for you, now we switch to something else. So they got the whirlpool going. I loved the whirlpool. The second I got into the whirlpool, I was just like, the birthing tub, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like heaven. It like allowed me to lay down without having any pressure on any points in my body, and it was just so warm, and the jets were amazing. It was fantastic. I don't remember how long I was in there for. This is the part of the labor where you guys, like, you start to, like, I was on my phone before this chatting with people and like doing stuff, you know. I was now in the point of my labor. This is probably around like 11:30 at night, I would say. I was at the point in my labor where you enter a different world. Like, you aren't I wasn't present. I was focusing strictly on the labor. Nothing else mattered to me. Food didn't exist. People didn't exist. It was just me and my body doing these crazy things, and me just trying to get through it. I was in active labor, and it was really painful. I was in the birthing tub, and it was feeling good, it was feeling good, it was feeling good, and then I sat up, and I kind of was like hunched over, just sitting in the middle of the tub, and I lost time. I don't remember. I was kind of in like this weird state. I felt drugged almost, like it was just really intense and painful, and I started to feel nauseous, and I don't know why. That's where my labor took a turn for the worse. Like, I went from having my shit together to not having it together. My contractions really, really, really picked up in the tub. So I freaked out. I lost it. I was so exhausted. I said to Dan, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot do this anymore. It hurts so bad. Like, I just can't do it. And he said, okay. And he said, do you want me to get the nurse? And I said, yes, get the nurse. I cannot do this anymore. Nurse gets me out of the tub with Dan. I'm having contractions. They're so intense. They're coming at like, so they were probably at this point. It's so hard to like retell you this story, because like you lose track of time. Like, it's insane. But I think around like, they were like well over a minute duration, I believe. And they were coming at like a minute and 30 seconds, I would say. Or a minute. I don't know. It literally felt like I had like seconds in between the contractions. So it was just like, when one would stop, it would be like, I don't know, 20 seconds until the next one would start. And it was just like so intense. little dude's crying right now.